Good morning on this Sunday as we welcome the light as days continue to grow longer. We are so glad you joined us today. I'm Martha Sinkula, your service leader, and I welcome you to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. I really miss seeing all of you, and as we continue to meet through recorded services, we are all missing the beloved community of in-person service. You know, we've been doing this now for over a year, and it doesn't get any better. We're hoping that things will get better. It's so very important that we make contact with others. Please call and check in with others just to say hello, and you might find out something. Let people know that you're thinking of them. Our speaker today is Michael Wheeler, our director of music, who will be available after sermon for the Zoom discussion, which is every Sunday. Check-in that begins at 11:15 with conversation beginning at 11:30. And if you want to participate in our after-service discussion and haven't yet used Zoom, call our office to ask someone. Kirsty could probably assist you with a phone number to help you make contact with Zoom. If you miss the after-service discussion, they are recorded, so like our services, you can view them anytime on YouTube. Services are generally uploaded on Saturday nights. In addition to services and discussions, we also have meditations and interviews. There's a lot to check out. You can also use the closed captioning button if you're having trouble hearing. Just touch that at the bottom of your screen and you'll be able to see the words for the services. We thank Michael Wheeler and Lucy Swangham for their work in producing these videos and of our services every week. Thanks. Thank you so much. Our opening words this morning is called Drawn Together by Jennifer Leota Gray. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods. Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Our opening words this morning are by Gerard Malanga. Be happy in what you do. Be respectful of yourself. Do good works for others, and the goodness will come back to you and make you a better person. I think that's what happiness is all about. Now's the time in our service for reflection. Find a comfortable position and feel the tensions in your body relax. And as we take a slow breath in, breathe in peace. And a slow breath out, breathe out love. Peace, love. And let us gather our energies as we participate in this meditation. Listen to the words, spend some time in silence, and enjoy the music. This is called Many Paths of Charity by Stephen B. Potty. Who can tell? Who can tell? Like ripples in a pond, how far a pebble of good intent impacts the world beyond. Beyond the office, outside the home. Removed from goals of self, amazing things can happen with but a token of your wealth. A wide catalog of causes aims at the sick and the poor, inspiring workers by the thousands to push aid to millions more. Oh, pick a love. Please choose to care. There exists an issue for you. There are humanitarian subjects, trees, and needy animals too. There are fire departments and scouting and life skill development. Select drug rehab or sheltered haven, or whatever makes you content by an everyday hero for a buck or a bundle. Choose a myriad choice of cause. There's some starving kids on this dark, wide earth who are hoping that you don't pause. Perhaps you say you give someplace else, or you volunteer at your church. Our charity begins at home, and you're sitting pretty on your porch. Well, friends, decisions rest between your ears, but consequences flap like a flag unfurled in your heart, in your times, and your children's too, proclaiming your vision of a bright new world. And optimistically, may we collectively win. We're all partners on this upward slope. Thanks. If kindness was a path for you in offering a glory of opportunity and hope.
Genesis 32:22-32, New International Version. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw he could not overpower Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans, and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon.
Our speaker today is Michael Wheeler, our Director of Music here at UUUC. He holds degrees in music theory and ear training, music history, ethnomusicology, and an MFA in music composition, and a Doctor of Sacred Music. He has also advanced diplomas in philosophy, psychology, and sociology, as well as becoming an ordained minister, an accomplished musician of piano and stringed instruments, and an in-depth thinker. Michael shares his vast knowledge of music, history, and philosophy in his frequent thought-provoking sermons at UUUC. His primary focus in ministry is examining the role of the story in the shaping of the self and community. He is also our director, videographer, and editor of all our recorded sermons you are seeing every week, doing an excellent work. Thank you, Michael. I forgot.
A very good morning to you, friends and congregation members. I wanted to start today's talk with the story of Jacob and how that relates to the steel man concept. And I don't mean to berate you with philosophical ideas or syllogisms, but just to recap from our last discussion, because I do get questions about these things from parishioners who want more explanation. If we remember from our last discussion on the Ten Commandments that if we represent God as our highest ideal, that God is the polar north of our moral compass, we could say, is something that takes work, right? So what is a steel man? A steel man is the opposite of a straw man, whereas a straw man is a poor representation of an opposing viewpoint, so that it can easily be knocked down. The steel man is the strongest representation of an opposing viewpoint, so that you actually have to deal with it. Everybody knows that it's easy to dismiss something that's poorly argued, but something that goes to the heart of the issue and yet is contrary to what we might think, that is something worth wrestling with. And it's no coincidence that Jacob and God wrestle throughout the night. I can tell you, I cannot count the amount of sleep that I've lost in trying to come to some moral or philosophical conclusion. It is interesting that, especially within many religious traditions, that wisdom or kindness or a moral center is something that is bestowed onto us by a loving and generous God. Although there are some stories where that happens, I think the Jacob story is much more realistic. I don't believe that we come to moral conclusions because it is innate or natural to us. I believe that we come to our moral or philosophical conclusions because we have to fight for them. And in every martial arts tradition, it's no coincidence that the common refrain is that the true enemy is the enemy within. So with that in mind, how do we grapple? How do we wrestle with the idea, the very Christian notion, that our works are like filthy rags unto God? This is a common refrain by those who believe in what I would consider to be a relatively reductive view that we are saved by faith alone, that God cares nothing for our good works. And while I don't agree with that point of view, after all, in my tradition, in the Zoroastrian tradition, the Zoroastrian conservatives actually wear a kind of sacred undergarment, not unlike you have in the LDS faith. But the undergarment, the undershirt, has a pocket next to the center of the chest, And it's just a very small pocket. It can't carry anything. But the idea is that that's where you store your good deeds. And when you go into the afterlife, those good deeds will be measured against those selfish actions, and that's how you will be judged. Now, again, that's just a very surface explanation, and we could get into that in our discussion today if you would like to. I do love talking about this. But the notion that that God cares nothing for our deeds, especially for us as Unitarian Universalists, that I imagine, if you're like me, that just doesn't strike you the right way. I mean, after all, how can this be? We talked at length last week from the sermon that was read that we adhere to the, quote, deeds, not creeds, meaning that what you do is far more important than what you believe, although that's not quite, I think, what that quote means. What I believe that quote means is that what you say versus your actions, right? It's the actions that tell us what your motivations are, or what the quality, and not meaning good or bad, but the quality of your character. And, after all, being a church that believes deeply in charity, I think that we should hold on high those noble actions. Think about the number of people we've fed through the fish food pantry. Think of the benefit concerts that we did for Casa de Belén, or when we were meeting in person and choosing a monthly charity to support. These are noble things, and these are things that in a major way palpably make our community better. So and this might be good for discussion, what might be the difference between good works and charity? Now, I think the most obvious difference between the concept of good works and the concept of charity is that charity implies that the person doing the charitable action will receive nothing in return. And I think that's why one of the most popular stories from the New Testament is the story of the Good Samaritan, that this is a man who goes completely out of his way to help somebody who probably wouldn't have helped him. Whereas good work,
you might be able to profit from that. Now, this is a more complicated concept than we might think if we're just looking at broadly good works, whereas works is something you can profit from, versus charity, whereas charity is something that is freely given with no expectation. Because the truth is that a good work might very well go further and do more good in the long run than charity. Think about the inventors of, let's say, vaccines, since that's a hot topic now, that the number of lives that they've saved, and perhaps their motivation was from profit. Think about indoor electricity or the modern advancements we have in communication that have, while they have their problems, and every solution, I'm trying to avoid the word solution these days, but every solution comes with a certain amount of complications, that we adhere to them, we stick to them because we see a material benefit from them. And by the way, I hate, I'll be a broken record. I'm often quoting the Thomas Sowell quote that there are no such things as solutions, there are only trade-offs. And that's not to diminish those trade-offs. Sometimes the trade-offs give you, like we're talking about in innovation and advancement, a markedly better situation, a markedly better world than what came before. So it's not to diminish the value of trade-offs. So motive, in some ways, from some points of view, might be extracted
from the greater good that somebody is after. So say, for instance, if somebody were to invent a way to feed the world so that no children would ever go hungry, but their goal was, say, to be able to buy a private island, I think the world would be willing to pay that price. Now, the actions of that individual, though we could argue were selfish and self-centered, the maximum good that was done by that person is something that's worth consideration. I think of more concrete and more local examples. I've been enjoying my exercise and workout routines, and I look at the business owner of the gym that I go to, and I see this guy, doing anything from mopping floors to helping with machine repair to, checking people in at the front desk to even using the massage gun on people who have just had their workouts. He's a hardworking guy. And he'll walk the floor of the gym saying hi to people, but there is a look of pride on that man's face that beams. And you can tell that it goes beyond simply having a successful business. I see the car he drives. I imagine he probably does rather well for himself. But the pride that is on his face for building this thing that so many people enjoy, I think goes far beyond simple profit. By the same token, I have hired a lot of musicians. I'm currently working on finishing an album. It's the first thing I've done in like 4 years. And I was talking to a young rapper, and I don't enjoy writing. I've never actually tried, but I wouldn't enjoy attempting to write rap lyrics. And I was really impressed with this young man's demo. And so I contacted him and I said, hey, I'd really, really like to get you on a track. And I sent him the instrumental ideas that I was working on. And he said, okay, I'll do it for $10. I was thinking, no, no, you won't do it for $10. And so I wrote him back and I said, I've got to pay you more than that. But you could tell that his motivation had nothing to do with the $10. He probably would have done it for free if I'd asked for it. But it's that I have something to say. I have something to contribute to this project that would make, dare I say, the sum of the universe greater for having my voice be a part of it. What was was it a Shakespeare quote? I can't remember, but it was quoted in the Dead Poets Society, and Robin Williams says that the great play of life goes on, and you may contribute a verse. And what will your verse be? So we see that our actions, I don't mean to bog you down,
but it's actually more complicated than I've just laid out. I remember watching Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron's Way of the Master on the Trinity broadcast system. And they had this shtick where they would go around in public places and speak to people. And they would ask people to judge themselves based on the 10 Commandments. So they would say things, ever used God's name in vain? Have you ever told a lie? And of course people, everybody has lied. And so they say, if you have ever told you, that makes you a liar. And have you ever had anger or hatred towards someone? Because Jesus said, if you have anger or hatred towards someone, you have committed murder in your heart. If you've ever lusted after somebody, you have committed adultery in your heart. So, and this is their shtick, right? This is how they would conclude. They would say, so by your own admission, you are a lying, thieving, adulterer and murderer at heart. How do you think God, invariably what would tend to happen is the person being interviewed would say, yeah, but I am a good person. I have done good things in my life. And they would be completely honest in that. And for me, because what would happen is Ray Comfort would say, imagine you're pulled in front of a judge for the crime of murder, and you tell the judge, okay, I may be guilty of murder, but look at all of these good things that I've done in life. Can the judge simply say, okay, you've been a good person, even though you're guilty of murder, you've been a good person, and so I'll let you go, right? And this is what is so frustrating to me about the evangelical, especially the televangelist movement, is that it is so base and so reductive and such a of looking at these enormous issues. You know, you can tell that they have never wrestled the steel man, because in talking, and if you've ever tried to have a conversation with a street preacher, you know this, that it seems like one of the qualities of street preachering is an intransigence. And that's the most frustrating thing, because if you are going to discuss the greatest concept in the universe, God, and how that concept interacts with the material and limited human creation, then you better be damn willing to consider all points of view. And I just don't see that, especially in the televangelist community. Now, of course, they probably are having a product to sell, and it's less spiritual than it is financial and capitalistic, and all of that's fine, but it still is nonetheless frustrating, because what I would say to Ray Comfort in that is that if God is the ultimate judge, a judge, and for the attorney, does actually have what we call prosecutorial or judicial discretion. A judge can say, you've been a good person, therefore I will temper this sentence with mercy. But unfortunately, as in so much religious thinking, things become black and white. That you are either good or bad. And there is a verse that's often quoted in the Bible that if you are lukewarm, I will spew you from my mouth. So, with all of this, I would like to offer a solution to this problem that hopefully we are not all too frustrated by. The real reason is that we don't get to serve as our own judges. Justice, by definition, must come from a right arbiter of justice. And if we have wronged someone, we don't get to decide how we atone. This is why I enjoyed so much Lauren Schroeder's talk about the Jewish Day of Atonement last year when we had that, and I think we might be able to look forward to another discussion of the same nature this year. So we've all met those individuals who are antisocial or liars, or through their own selfishness seek to do damage, either to people or communities, meaning individuals or communities. But they will be the nicest of people. They will do wonderfully charitable acts, perhaps partially as a form of guilt or partially as a form of manipulation, because we can't dismiss that either. I believe it was David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer, who, after murdering women, would help people to change flat tires or jumpstart their cars in New York City, that from all accounts, especially after he committed a murder, could be an incredibly generous person. So I would say that in order for our deeds to be truly noble,
They have to be rooted in something substantial, right? As I mentioned in the beginning of this talk, our moral compass has to have that North Pole, our North Star. And what is that but our highest ambition and our highest goal? It cannot be rooted in the fleeting whims of the material. So therefore, friends and community, I would offer a humble amendment to the idea that we are a church who believes not in creeds but in deeds, to a simple amendment saying deeds from creeds. I hope you have a beautiful Sunday. Thank you very much.
Our closing words are by Martin Luther. God does not need your good works, but your neighbor does. Go now in peace, and blessed be.